Hello again, and welcome to your Yin Yoga practice with a special focus on the heart and the lungs. Today, you might want to have a prop like a rolled up blanket or a towel that you could use to support the body. This can be used also in our first pose underneath the knees to make sure that the knees don't feel any strain when we come into a twisted child's pose. If you don't have a blanket, a towel will work fine, or also you could use a pillow for the side supine stretch for the underarms. So we're going to be focusing a lot in the upper body. And as always, you want to feel comfortable and listen to your body. So start on hands and knees. We'll just start with a couple of easy cat and cow poses to wake up the spine. Use your inhale to soften the belly, looking up gently, and use your exhale to round the back, pulling your belly in and up, getting really long through the whole back. We'll just do this one more time. Noticing if there's any tight spots, any tender spots, or any extreme sensation. That's going to be a very important signal to listen to in the body. So if you ever feel anything that feels painful, if it feels sharp or fiery, please stop what you're doing. Come out if you're in a pose and take some time to feel that. So we're going to start, as I said, in twisted child's pose at first. And we're going to take a really wide base. So you want to open your knees at least as wide as the mat, even wider if you can. And here's where you might want that first support under the back of your knees, and or maybe a pillow, a bolster, to help support you as you come down. You could also put it behind your feet. And what we're going to do is, with your knees wider than your hips, maybe even wider than the mat, bring your big toes together to touch, and try to come back and sit back with your sitting bones towards the back of your feet. And then we're going to lower the upper body down to the ground. And we're going to twist over to the right side. So you'll bring that left arm up a little bit, just to help extend the spine. And then bring the left arm underneath your body and come down onto the left side of your shoulder, left side of your head. And you can walk your hands over a little bit more to the right side. That'll just help you open up a bit more on the left. And then you might find it's easier to place that left arm all the way down on the ground. You can keep the right arm by your head for support, or again, use your fingers to walk your hand over to the right. We're compressing a little bit on the right side of the body to really open up the left. We're going to be here, like we will in all of our Yin poses, for a good amount of time. If you're new to Yin, you might only want to stay here for a minute or two. And classically, we hold Yin poses for 2 to 3, even up to 5 minutes. And you want to start in a conservative version of the pose that you're able to hold with no difficulty. If you think of a stoplight, red, yellow, and green, you're definitely entering in a green, easy way until you come to your edge. And this edge is going to be your guiding principle for the class. Once you find that version of the pose that you're able to hold, and right where you start to notice any resistance, so you might be feeling already quite a big stretch in the back side of your body. the back space for your breathing room. Then you're going to stay there, maybe even playing a little while with that edge by simply pausing, coming to our second guiding principle, which is stillness. So a lot of these poses that we're doing in this Yin style class, they're not different from our more active Yang style class, but it's our approach to the poses that makes them Yin. So Yin Yoga is all about turning in, activating a little bit more inner awareness, observing what's going on inside of you, inside your body, inside your breathing room, and even in your thoughts. We've been here some time in this first twisted child's pose. We're going to take 3 more smooth, unrushed breaths. And that 3 final breaths is a nice reminder of our last guiding principle in Yin, and that's time. Really give yourself the time to fully enjoy those breaths. At the end of your 3rd breath, you're going to use that upper arm for support and help walk your way back over to the center, untwisting, maybe unwinding, and we'll just, for a transition, take a wide knees child's pose. You could bring the knees in a little bit more, especially if you're feeling any tenderness in your inner thighs and the groin area. And you'll want to make this pose nice and supportive. You could bring your hands underneath your forehead, or even resting your arms by your side if that felt better, making a fist. Pause here in a centered, neutral position and see if you can already notice any changes in the way that you feel, perhaps changes in your breathing. And then when you're ready, we'll come to the second side, twisted child's pose. So for this, we want our knees really wide apart, wider than the hips. And the big toes can be touching. And again, you could have something underneath your seat. One side might be different. Or even behind your knees, if your knees give you any problem. Try to come into it by walking your hands over to the side. Now we're walking our hands all the way over to the left. And we're going to lift up that right arm. And then exhale, tuck it underneath your body, bringing it over to the left, coming down onto the outside of that right shoulder, and the side of the head resting on the ground, or perhaps on a bolster, on a blanket. Come as far into the pose as you find your first edge. And then we're going to hang out and play a while with that edge. At first, you may need to make small adjustments to find that version of the pose that's going to work best for you today, where then you can ultimately settle down and settle in with stillness. You might keep the hand quite close to your head, a little bit more support. You might be able to walk your hand farther over to the left, stretching out that right side of the body now as we compress the left a little bit more. So the upper body is long. Really notice the space for your breathing, for your breath, throughout your whole torso. So the lungs are of course, 3D organ. And I want you to see if you can get a little bit more of a 360-degree view internally of your lungs. So they expand, lifting, not just in that way we usually think of, into the belly and up and down, but they're also moving out to the sides and even again into the back body. I'd like you to bring your attention into the back body for the next minute in this pose. And see if you can really direct your attention into the organs closer to the back side of the body, the space behind the lungs, around the shoulder blades, and also the space just above the kidneys, the adrenal glands. And then as we let time take us deeper into the pose, really doing the majority of the work, bring your attention back to your breathing and see if you can settle in a little bit easier, a little bit more quietly, observing yourself. Now, over time, you may find that your edge changes. You may notice that the intensity of the pose changes, and with it, your breath. It starts to feel a lot more intense wherever you are. Your breath may become shorter, more flat. And this is a sign also that you may want to back out a little bit, walking your hands closer to center, taking it a little bit easier and doing a little bit less, so that you can return to a full, natural breath. Always breathing in through the nose. And when it feels easy and relaxed, breathing out through the nose. A long exhale, release. We're going to take 3 more breaths here in this second side. When you come to that third exhalation, mindfully coming out by walking your hands back into the center, perhaps unwinding and opening, and then coming back one more time to a neutral, little bit of a wide knee child pose, but bringing the knees perhaps a little bit closer and supporting your forehead so that your head and neck can rest. Again, just noticing the after effects of the pose. Good stuff. Okay, come up onto hands and knees when you're ready. We're going to take quarter dog or puppy dog pose. So you're going to start with your hips above your knees, but if your knees ever give you trouble, if they give you pain, it's always better to comfort the knees and provide more cushion, perhaps folding your mat or using the blanket under the knees. And then we're going to walk the hands forwards. The hands start under the shoulders, and you're going to walk them forward at least 1 hand length, maybe 2, until you can bring your upper body, and bring your forearm underneath your forehead, and then extend the other arm long. We're getting a nice stretch in the underarm area. And go ahead and lift your hips a little bit. You may need to adjust your knees. You also want to feel a good stretch in your lower back, which is the highest part of the back right now. And again, you want the forehead, the head and the neck to rest heavily down. So you want to feel some good support here on the back of your forearm. And once you find that version of the pose that you can feel your edge in, feeling a little bit of Perhaps stretch and opening, and settle in to long inhales and full exhales, turning your attention to your breath. Thought I'd talk to you a little bit about my experience and my perspective on Yin Yoga and why we do it. Now that you already know a little bit the how, the Yin Yoga is the complement to Yang, to the active, the fiery, often the much faster style of yoga. And Yin is often about cooling and calming. So it's a really good practice to do when the body is still cool, actually. You would do it before a more active flow style vinyasa class. And we do that because we're not really working with the muscles, which is a much warmer tissue. We're working more with the connective tissue. And that's a much colder part of the body. And we're not really just pulling and stretching this tissue, certainly not forcing anything in Yin. Because this tissue is much tighter, it's much firmer than the muscles, and so we cannot stretch it in the same way. Instead, we want to use a little bit of traction. That's where we use the lengthening of the body, like you're lengthening that one arm away from you, and you might find you walk your fingers a little farther away. But then we use gravity and traction, just a gentle resistance in the form of your edge, and we do the work through the breath, because this tissue takes more time to become more pliable. We do get a little bit more flexibility. It's a different kind of flexibility than our yang stretches in Hatha Yoga. And another really important benefit we get from Yin is a moistening of these tissues. So because they become stretched thinner through traction, even the joints and the bones are part of Yin Yoga. These tissues, they squeeze a little bit of their natural fluids out of them when we take these deep poses. And then once we come out of the pose, these fluids start to flow back in. It's kind of a rushing of liquid, even liquid energy coming back in. And that can feel strange. It can feel quite uncomfortable in your Yin practice, and that's okay. This discomfort may last quite a while, but you will notice, especially over time and as you practice more, you'll notice this even on more subtle levels, and it's really good for these tissues. We're going to take 3 final breaths here. Long inhales and deep exhales. Feel free, if it feels better, to breathe out the mouth. Always fully release your breath. At the end of your 3rd exhale, slowly, noticing how that feels, come back to a neutral position, shoulders over the wrists, knees under the hips, and then we'll take cat and cow again, moving with the breath, and again, just noticing what you notice, and giving yourself the time to feel what you feel. Great. Good work. So we start in neutral again, shoulders over the wrists, and knees right under the hips. I like to tuck my toes, but you might feel better with the feet long on the ground. And then we're going to walk the arms forward, at least 1 hand length, maybe 1.5, until you can set your forehead right on the back of your forearm, and then you'll walk the other arm a little bit more forward until you feel that opening, probably a pretty big stretch in the shoulder. And this pose is really good for stretching the underside of the arm. And I'm feeling it quite a bit on this side. I'm feeling it differently, even more in the top of the shoulder. I want to be sure that however I'm feeling this pose and however I'm holding it, it is not causing me so much effort, or rather, I don't need so much effort that I'm straining to hold it. Because if you're straining or struggling in your pose, it's going to be very difficult to rest your attention in your breathing. And if there are any sharp or very big sensations in the body, that's also going to distract you. And that's not really helpful for a yin practice, really any yoga practice. Yoga is about finding harmony. The root of the word yoga means coming together. It means unity and harmony. So again, find that version of the pose that you can hold where you're feeling something, perhaps a little bit of resistance. Once you have that edge, settle in and see if you can rest your attention in your breathing. And just allow yourself to be there, whatever you're feeling. We're going to focus a lot on this underarm space. There's a lot of glands there in the lymphatic system, some important ones. And these glands and the channels that connect them in the physical body are associated with channels in our more subtle aspects of the body that in Eastern medicine and Chinese medicine and also in the yogi approaches are associated with the flow of energy through the body. So we actually manipulate the body and we take these kind of funny poses. One, because it usually feels pretty good, although it may be uncomfortable too. That's okay. But the deeper, probably more important effects happen on more subtle levels. They have to do with our circulation, of course, of fluid, of blood, of the breath. But also, they really restore the harmonious flow of life force in you, prana, or chi. So we're looking to work specifically with these channels of energy in the underarm, inside of the arm, and of course the whole area through the side body, around the lungs, and the back. As these channels are associated with those organs of hearts and lungs, but also a little bit the liver that help us detoxify, help us process what we take into the body, and let go of everything we don't need. If you can let your belly hang a little softer as we take 3 final breaths. At the end of your 3rd breath, again, coming out the way you came in, very attentive to how that feels. And we can take some neutralizing motions again with cat and cow. Extending and flexing the spine, taking that arch, especially lifting the tail as you look up, and rounding your back as you pull the belly in, and then coming back to a neutral spine as you're ready. And here's where you're going to want your prop. So you can do it with a pillow, especially if you're able to fold the pillow. We're going to put this in the space of the underarm, but I really like to work with blankets for this kind of work. And so if your blanket is open, you're going to want to roll it, fold it up so that it's about the length of the back from your shoulders to maybe down to your hips, and roll it up as tight as you can. So you have a kind of nice log here, a little bit on the skinnier side if you can get it, because we're going to want to put this underneath our underarm. I'm going to come down onto the side. And you're going to want to also rest, so your hips are on the ground, that side body, but also your head wants to find some support here. And this can be in your lower arm, the extended arm. And you're going to want to place this blanket roll somewhere where you start to feel sensation. So this can be directly on those glands in the armpit area. It might be a little bit closer to your shoulder blades. You might roll it a little bit so it's more closer to your hips. Wherever you put it, you're going to want to put it where you can rest and observe. And this upper arm that we have free here, here's where we're going to get that other stretch. So we'll start with the hand in front of the body, in front of the heart, and you're going to walk it overhead. You're only going to walk it as far as it takes for you to feel some sensation now in the underarm, and maybe also the shoulder, upper part of the shoulder of the lifted arm. So that may be very different for you. You might need to not go very far at all. You might be keeping your arm pretty close to your head. That's fine. This is a nice pose because it doesn't require any effort. We're going to get a lot of feeling here. Getting that compression again through the blanket roll. On our resting side, our underarm, we're also getting an opening in the underarm space of our lifted arm. So use your fingertips to walk that arm to a place where you can then hold it. Use a little bit of traction there and a lot of breath. Again, this pose is not going to be so restorative if your head and neck are struggling here. So you really need to use that lower arm, or perhaps also a pillow or something, so that your head feels supported. No craning of your neck, no strain, and definitely no pain. If you find your edge moves as you stay resting in your pose, you have room to go a little deeper, you might even begin to walk your hand towards the back of your head, towards the back body. And again, let's see if we can direct the breath to that entire 360-degree space of the breathing room, and really breathe explicitly into the back body. Take 3 more deep, unrushed breaths. Very good. When you're ready, start to walk that upper arm back to a more central, supported position, and then use both of your arms to come up. And you're just going to turn around, or so that I can keep facing you, I might take my roll to the other side. I'm going to come down onto our side. Lovely. Good. So come down onto your side, resting the hips on the floor, that one hip rather, and also your lower arm. Got that pillow maybe for your head if you want it, but you want your roll or pillow, if that's the prop that you've got, folded up as small as you can get it. So you're getting that nice pressure of your prop in the space of your underarm, or maybe it's closer to the bottom of your shoulder blade. And that pillow was really nice. I'm going to use that. So once you're feeling that sensation in the space of your underarm, we take that upper arm in front of the heart at first and start to walk it towards the top of your head. And this side might be very different from the other. And that's fine. And it's great if you can notice it. So you might notice you have a little bit more room here. And you can already go deeper in the pose. Or something might be stuck a little differently. You might be more limited in your range of motion on this side. And that's also okay. In fact, that is really the essence and the important work that we're doing here by being in the body and noticing its balance and its imbalances, and then directing your attention to that with compassionate awareness and lots of breath. By taking this time, you're actually helping your body restore its natural harmony, coming back to its most balanced, healthy version of itself. Because the body is always healing itself. And our awareness, our consciousness, in one of its most natural forms, is healing. We don't have to try here or even really think about all these things our body is doing for us. But we can help the body a little bit more by simply being with it, giving it time, giving it your loving attention, and remembering your breath. Feel free in any of these poses where you feel quite stable and supported to close your eyes. That helps you turn your attention more inwards. In Yin, we move in. And also feel free to stay as long as you like and as long as you need in any of these poses. Maybe listening to and honoring your body. We'll take 3 more smooth, unrushed breaths here. At the end of your third exhale, bringing that upper arm back closer to your center, to your heart, and then using both of your hands to help yourself up. Briefly taking a seat before we come down to the ground for our last couple poses. Okay. Go ahead and move your props away to the side. You might want the blanket roll for under the knees for a final relaxation. And then come down onto your back, bending your knees, and then hugging your legs into your chest. We're going to take a supine spinal twist. So resting on the back and using our lower body to get some twist through the spine and again through the area of the upper breathing room, around the lungs, heart. So we'll do this. We're going to twist over to the right first. I'm going to mirror you. And so to do that, you're going to scoot your hips over to the left, bringing your seat over a little bit. You can even use your hands. And then you bring your arms out wide. You're going to drop your knees together over towards the right. It's okay if they don't come down all the way. But find a version of the pose where you can rest the feet on the floor and let gravity draw your knees towards the ground as you extend the other arm out long. And now your head should also be resting supported. So the back of the head can stay on the ground, resting heavy. And you might just keep your head in the center looking up. Or you can look to the opposite side. So your head, you're looking in the direction of your extended arm. And you might also want to bend the elbows here. This may change how you feel the twist, especially through the upper back. By doing so, you might have room to lift your elbows up a little closer so they're as high as your shoulders, or maybe even a little higher in the direction of your ears. And find that version of the pose that you can hold and play with the edge. We found some resistance, but we are never pushing or forcing the body past its limit. The knees stay as close together as you can easily keep them. So there's a tendency for them to slide apart. That's why we give a little bit more space for the lower body by moving the hips and the seat to the side so that the knees can rest together. You could even bring so if you're twisting to the right, it's your right arm to the outside of that upper leg of the left leg. Not to force the legs down, but maybe just as a little piece of feedback, and maybe adding a little bit of weight there. Whatever version of the pose you find yourself in, stay there for a while and rest your attention in your breath. Really see if you can direct your breathing into the full expansion of your breathing room, not just the front of your abdomen, but also your side body lengthening, space between the ribs opening, and the back body opening up into the ground. With every exhale, softening and releasing anything you don't need. Take 3 more breaths here. And whatever you've gotten yourself into, come out the same way and engage your core a little bit, pulling the navel in to support your back as you bring the legs back up to the center. Just pausing for a moment on your back, noticing and feeling. And then when you're ready, with the feet under the knees, I like to take my seat, take the hips over to the other side. Keeping the knees together, I'm going to let the lower part of the spine, letting the legs fall over. Now to the left, if you've been starting with me. And as much as possible, the knees want to stay close together, although I notice that's more difficult on this side for me. And as much as possible, you want to keep your shoulders resting heavy on the floor. So especially the back of your shoulders, the shoulder blades. You may again need to modify and adjust. You could take a pillow underneath your knees, or even a blanket in between the knees, the rolled up blanket. So you want to feel a sense of stability and connection in your pose that helps you arrive at your edge and stay a while. That could be with the back of the head on the floor and just looking up towards the center. Or you might turn the head, keeping it supported on the floor, and now looking over your right arm, looking in the opposite direction of your knees. You might also bend the elbows here. And this may allow you to bring the elbows a little bit higher, as high as the shoulders, but you might feel the stretch more if you have the elbows closer to your hips. You could also move your knees up closer to your shoulders. For many people, this will intensify the stretch. You want to move to that version of the pose where you feel your edge, and you can stay a while, settling in with stillness. So let the intensity of the pose, the intensity of the sensation match the intensity and the fullness of your breath. So if things become more intense over time, you find your edge, maybe you even tipped past it, and just come out a little bit, take it a little bit easier, so that you can settle back in with long inhales and full exhales. Fully release. Go ahead and take 3 more smooth, long, and unrushed breaths. At the end of your 3rd exhale, returning the head to the center, pulling in with your belly towards the center and lifting your legs back up. And again, just pausing for a moment, noticing the after effects of your pose. And then we'll open out the legs one at a time, again, wider than the mat, or at least wider than your hips. And the arms can stay out here like a letter T, or bring them overhead, also pretty wide. The key here is that your shoulders stay down, connecting with the ground. So the back of the head, the back of the shoulders resting on the floor in this starfish stretch. Well, actually, this one's pretty passive. I'm not really feeling any stretch. But this is our neutral position where we're going to come in and out of. So we're going to now start to walk your left foot over to the right, but keep your hips as much as possible flat. So both hips resting on the ground. You might need to adjust your seat to do that. Just really depends on your seat. And also now your shoulders and the back of your shoulders resting on the ground. As we start to walk the left arm over to the right. And this is called the banana pose here. It's a side body stretch. So we're opening the left side one more time as we compress the right. Notice your hips, and you really want both of the hip bones in the front of your body parallel on one level, facing up. And really important that both shoulders have a good connection with the ground. The back of the head can start there. And you can also move your head around, finding whatever position feels best for your neck. For a little more traction, you can grab the left hand or the left wrist with your right hand and just gently pull it over to the right, but be aware of your shoulder. The top side of your shoulder should still stay relaxed and connecting into the upper back. So you want your neck to feel nice and long, even on that left side. And with the lower body, we could also bring the left foot over the right. So now that kind of ankles are crossed over each other, that may or may not add some intensity that you might or might not want. So again, open up on that side of the body that we're breathing into very deeply. And exhale, settle in and let go of whatever you don't need. Feel free to stay a little longer if you like. Let's take 3 more smooth, easy breaths. At the end of your 3rd exhale, gently coming out, walking your body back over to center, and taking that neutral starfish pose. And just giving yourself a moment to feel it out. And then as you're ready, so now the legs wider than the mat again, you start to walk the right foot over to the left. And we'll bring that right arm over the head on the ground and bring the upper body over to the left. So we have this really crescent-shaped body, kind of like a crescent croissant or a crescent moon. Maybe this is just the banana pose for you. I don't know. How does it feel? However it feels, it will help you find that stability if your hips remain level. So the sitting bone's a little bit flat on the ground, but the hip bones on the front, both facing up. You may need to adjust your seat for that. And you may want to grab that right arm or the right wrist with your left hand. Just add a little bit of traction if that helps you find your edge. or the weight of the body and the shape of the pose might be enough. You can also cross that right foot over the left. But if that makes you feel unstable or tight somehow through the hips and legs, then just take it a little easier. And see if you can relax into your breath. This is our final yin pose of this sequence. Don't let that impulse, that information, make you feel like you need to try a little harder or do any more. Instead, let's see if with this final formation, you can become a little bit more neutral, a little bit more centered, even as your body is holding this interesting shape. And any sensations that come with it may keep arising, changing. Despite everything that's going on externally and internally, can you find your unwavering center? Can you find your inner peace, finding your inner self? Once you've found that stillness, you've given yourself that love, feel free to stay as long as you like. When you feel like you're ready to come out, take 3 more last, beautiful, unrushed breaths. At the end of the exhale, gently releasing and returning back to a neutral position. As we finish with a final relaxation, that could just be here in your starfish version of Shavasana. Or maybe you want to take the bolster, the blanket roll, and put it underneath your knees. It helps keep the hips a little bit more soft, the lower back a little bit more relaxed. You could also rest on your side, or even come to sit up in a chair, if that were the best position, the most restful place for you. Make any of those final adjustments that you need. Allowing your body one more time to settle down. As you turn your attention inwards again, taking the time to notice how you feel. With every exhalation, letting go of everything you don't need. With every exhalation, allow your whole body to rest heavy into the earth. With every exhalation, allow your whole body to soften and relax. With every exhalation, allow your full attention to turn inwards. Once you've arrived again at that place of peace and stillness, simply rest your full attention in the rise and fall of your breath. Feel free to stay as long as you'd like, as long as you need. And when you're ready, slowly start to deepen your breathing. Longer inhales. And every exhale, complete. With this deeper, fuller breath, the body will slowly start to re-energize as it moves with your breathing. And you can let these small movements just spontaneously get bigger, moving or even stretching your whole body again, if you like. And as you're ready, go ahead and bend one leg and then the other. And then hug your legs into your chest. Give yourself a good squeeze. And then roll over onto your right side. Just taking a moment to rest, reconnect with what you're feeling. Perhaps also setting an intention for the rest of your day. How do you want to show up today, regardless of what shows up for you? When you're ready, help yourself up, and we'll finish with one last stable and comfortable seat. You can bring your hands together in front of your heart. Finish with one of the best components of any practice, gratitude. So thanks. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your practice. May it benefit you and those around you. Namaste.